Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you exactly how to test your Facebook ads. I'm going to dive into how to test new audiences or ad sets, as well as the two ways I use to test out new creative. Now, if you clicked on this video, that already tells me that you're super serious about learning Facebook ads because you already know how important testing is. I've audited over thousands of Facebook ad accounts for big brands and smaller businesses, and the number one place that I see them messing up on is the fact that they do a lack of testing. So no fluff, I want to dive right into how you can test your Facebook ads no matter your budget or what kind of product you're trying to sell. Also, heads up, this is going to be way easier than you think. So first I want to talk about how to test new audiences or ad sets. And this is super important in the beginning especially because you're going to want to test out as many lookalikes and interest targeting avatars as possible so you can start driving those initial conversions like purchases. And the way that I test new audiences is actually pretty simple. First, I just launch a new campaign that's only for testing. And the key here is that I don't use CBO or campaign budget optimization. I actually use ad set budgeting. And this is super important because it allows me to make sure that the audience is getting the right amount of spend and we're getting the right amount of impressions so that I can properly evaluate if the audience is good enough. And really the biggest decision you're going to have to make here with this campaign is what kind of budget you want to use for each of your ad sets. So I would say that $10 is an absolute minimum, but for most products, I would recommend something more like $25 a day or even $50 a day for those products that are $100 or more. And essentially what we want to do here is we want to allow these ad sets to run at least 4 days, preferably 1 week, or until the amount spent is about 2 times your average CPA on Facebook ads. And you can find out what your CPA is or your cost per purchase by looking at what your cost per purchase is over the lifetime of your ads account. And if you don't know, I would go ahead and just do 2 times the amount of what your product actually costs. So what's cool here is you can actually do as much testing as your budget will allow. So you can test 2 to 3 audiences at any given time, or if you're just starting off, you can test like 20 to 30 ad sets right out of the gate so you can really zero in on what your audiences are most reacting to. With that said, there are a few things to keep in mind with this testing structure. Number 1, be sure that there are at least 3 ads in every ad set. And I really like to test out different formats here too, so I can get the biggest range. Something like a video, a carousel, and maybe even a single image. And the way that I normally find these ads is I actually look at the top 3 performing ads over the last 30 days, but making sure that, I'm using a variety of formats. And the reason why I want to make sure I can use ads that have already been proved out is because really what I'm doing here is I'm testing for the audiences, not exactly the creative at this point, and it's much more of an audience test as opposed to a creative test. With that said, I do like taking note what kind of formats these audiences are reacting to, because you are going to see that for some audiences, maybe the audience is reacting more towards carousels versus others that are reacting more towards videos, which is why I like to have that combination of ads in every single ad set test that I'm conducting. Another thing to keep in mind in the beginning is yes, separate out your lookalike audiences. However, the idea that you have to test only one interest audience at a time is completely outdated and something I really do not recommend. But I do have a video all about the kinds of audiences you should be conducting in these tests that I'm going to link below. So the next thing I want to talk about is how to test your creative, and there are 2 major ways that I do that. And number 1 is actually using dynamic creative. And essentially what dynamic creative does, it allows you to rapidly test 5 different headlines, pieces of copy, CTAs, along with 10 different images or videos, and Facebook's algorithm dynamically combines them into the best performing combinations. And what's super cool about this too is it not only finds the best combinations in general, it also finds the best combinations uniquely for each user. So an example I really like to use is if Facebook knows I really like dog videos, but my friend likes cat videos, if a dynamic creative campaign is going to be shown to both me and my friend because we're both in that target audience, then Facebook knows to show me the dog video and my friend the cat video. Dynamic creative is great for testing out new creatives in 2 major instances. Number 1 is if you're brand new to Facebook ads and you have a small budget. And essentially the idea here is that if you have 0 idea what this audience is going to react to, it's a really good idea to get multiple kinds of content, including copy, headlines, headlines as well as videos and images and seeing what begins to land for your selected audiences. That's why I like using dynamic creative for those first initial ad set tests so I can start to see what begins to land for the audiences. And then after I get an idea about what the best performers are, I'll then start to combine those into real ads and then use those in my tests. Another scenario where I like using dynamic creative is actually for accounts where I'm starting to scale them up. So what I'll tend to do is I'll have a campaign that is completely separate from my ad set testing campaign and my general scaling campaign, and I'll just have a CBO dynamic creative campaign where I conduct creative testing. And what I'm doing is I'm always going to be testing out new kinds of copy, headlines, as well as CTAs, along with new images and videos. And when I start to find those best combinations, then I'll disperse those out into the other campaigns. So I know that's a lot, but that's dynamic creative, but there is a second way that I like to test new creative. And spoiler alert, it does not feel like testing and it's super simple. You're probably already doing it. And essentially what that is it's you taking new ads and simply putting them into your already live campaigns and seeing how it stacks up against your already performing creative. This is a really great way to make sure that you're going in the right direction of your creative development, because you're always comparing it to how your current best performing creative is running.
Sorry for the camera change, but my camera died and I don't really feel like waiting around for it to charge up. So yes, this new way of just dropping in a new creative into an already performing ad set with your old creative, I do like doing this because I think it really, shows you that you're going in the right direction with your creative development, because you're always trying to beat what's already working in your account. Now, before we wrap up here, I do want to talk about two other things that you should always think about when testing your Facebook ads. And number one is to always keep an eye on your impressions, right? Because you want to just make sure that for whatever ad set or whatever creative you're testing, that the A and B get roughly the same amount of impressions so that you can make an informed decision. Because, if you see that you are testing out something and you claim it doesn't work, but it only had like 300 or 400 impressions, that's not a good test. So I'm not going to tell you how many impressions you should be looking for. The reality is that's different for every kind of budget and product, but you do want to make sure that, you are, letting the ad or the creative run for at least a week in most cases, and just making sure that it's getting enough spend, and you're going to properly evaluate that by looking at the impressions. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about was Facebook's test and learn feature, or A/B test feature. And I gotta be honest, I do not use this for most of my accounts. I used to use it a lot more, in years past, and I do sometimes use it for accounts that are spending really $150,000 or more in ad spend per month. But the reality is that in most cases, I tend to find that, using the strategies that I already explained in this video, I tend to get the exact same results if I use the A/B test feature, but using that A/B test feature is quite a bit more expensive. So I don't really use it for people that don't have that much of a budget on Facebook ads, to the tune of $200K per month. So, I don't recommend using that at this point. It is something that you could potentially test, but I think you're going to be using the methods that I explained in depth in this video anyways, because that's what I do for a majority of my clients. And I know that other agency owners as well as freelancers tend to use these methods as well. Anyways, thanks so much for watching my video. If you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments below. I'm super active there. Another thing I wanted to bring up is that I'm going to be launching a new Slack channel for Facebook ads at the end of the month, and I want you guys to join for free. So be sure to look in my bio on YouTube. There's going to be a link to it. Sign up. And I'm really excited for you guys to join the community. I really think that there is a lack of good Slack communities, but the ones that have, done it right, I really love them. And I'd love to have something for Facebook ads, and just as another way for us to communicate with each other and learn from each other. And that's it. So thanks for bearing with my camera change and hanging out with me today. Okay, bye guys.